Very good evening and welcome to Newsline, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Sharlan for the Newsfirst team. Without further ado, let's get right to our guest. Joining us this evening is Dr. Priyanga Dunusinghe. He is a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics of the University of Colombo. Very good evening and welcome to the show, sir.
Good evening.
So now the big reveal was done yesterday. Minister of Finance and Mass Media, Mangala Samaravira, came out before the cameras and he revealed this complex fuel pricing formula. Dr. Dunusinghe, how complex is this formula?
To my understanding, as I saw the formula in newspapers, it looks simple. Why I say look simple, it basically, the formula basically constructed on the basis of taking into account the value of barrel of oil in after converting to rupee or even in dollar, and then taking into account the exchange rate, then add some of the charges for transporting charges or the charges at the port
and the taxes,
and then add administrative cost, and also the other some of the leakages and operating related costs. So in that context, it is a linear equation which keep adding, and finally you get the final price or the maximum price. So in that sense, I don't see that compared to the mathematical equation that we have seen in different context, this is a very simple linear equation. So I don't think there is a hard science as such in constructing.
But previously, when this fuel pricing formula was requested, when journalists requested the Minister of Mass Media and Finance, Mangala Samaravira, to release this formula, he said that he doesn't want to release the formula because it will confuse the journalists so much to an extent that they will be just left confused on the subject. He said he himself couldn't understand this fuel pricing formula, but as it turns out, a preschool student could understand this formula.
Yes, I think as I just mentioned, I don't think that there is a hard science as such. It is a very straightforward linear equation, and just keep adding. You get first the price of
But doctor, there are concerns that this fuel pricing formula gives the government too much of a leeway to increase fuel prices according to their whims and fancies. I mean, they could include costs like there is a section that alludes to if fuel is being wasted, fuel is being evaporated, and all that. So they could just increase the fuel pricing formula in any way they want. This gives the government too much leeway. Do you feel that way?
I don't feel as such because most of the things such as operating leakages and also some of the things like even the taxes may remain more or less constant. Even the handling charges and the purifying charges, and sometimes the administrative cost can change depending on if there is a salary increase. And in that context, actually fuel price may, now we can really point at and identify what caused any increase. Yeah, mostly I think it may happen either mostly due to the changes in oil prices plus the depreciation impact.
But now, amid a situation where the global oil prices are on the rise, India has taken measures to reduce their taxes and let the benefit flow to the general public, as in they have reduced fuel prices by reducing the taxes that they impose on fuel prices. Is this a possibility for Sri Lanka?
At the moment, I don't see it is a possibility due to two reasons. First one is there is a pressure on rupee to depreciate further if we increase fuel consumption. So in this context, we need to discourage fuel consumption so that demand for dollar may not increase as such.
No.
On the other hand, we know that the public finance, government revenue remain very, there is a budget gap, and the government revenue as a percentage of GDP is around 13 to 14%. So if government reduce the taxes, then it can affect the government revenue as well. So that that means government has to go, has to borrow to fill the budget gap. So when you take into account these two dimension or two aspects, I think reducing taxes is not a good idea, I think, this time.
Speaking about bridging the budget deficit, how important it is that the government control the administrative expenses of the country?
Yes, I think that is something that government should seriously think. We know that there are a number of areas where we see unproductive government expenditure. Now,
starting from the very top, it's at the parliament.
Yes, this I think we need to take into account very seriously, because government increased taxes, using or adopting various measures. Introducing a new Inland Revenue Act, as well as increasing VAT and other taxes and other charges
on different sectors such as health services and so on and so forth.
So in that context, government highlighted the fact that we need more revenue in order to carry out public services and provide pre-education, pre-health and other things. Certainly we agree government needs revenue, but we want to see government utilize the resources effectively and productively,
so that it can benefit the general public.
Benefit the general public. What we see is to a certain extent opposite, in the sense that government does not utilize productively, and government has taken several measures to open up some unproductive expenditure areas, such as increasing allowances, increasing the number of local government members, and giving more benefits, or various offering various privileges to parliamentarian and others.
As general citizens of this country, we see this as a massive burden, the increase in the number of local government representatives, the increase in staff given for parliamentarians, ministers, so on and so forth. Now that is as a member of the general public that we see it as a huge burden. From an economic perspective, how much burdensome is this on the country?
This is certainly a burden in the sense
because we don't see anything being done even at the local government level. They increased the number of councillors almost by twice as much, maybe even a little bit more.
Yes.
But what has been done at the end of the day?
Yeah, that is what I just wanted to mention, that even though we see an increase in the number of heads, number of local government representatives, we don't see that local governments do anything, some significant contribution to economic development in those areas, or administrative,
Let's start talking about the most
services.
simple of services that a local government council can provide, the disposal of garbage. How well do you think it's been done across the country?
No, I think it is quite clear that it is a important subject, and I think a duty of main responsibility of local government authority. But they don't have a plan as such, other than dumping it from one place to another place. And as well as, I think there are a number of ways through which the local government could help businesses and for economic development. But what you see is that when you go to get certain maybe clearance and maybe other approval registrations, I think they work very inefficiently. As a result, not only the central government but even the local government should also be responsible for the present situation actually.
Is there a situation where local government councils can convert this garbage problem, as they call it, into a resource, something that can bring revenue to the local council and the country as well?
Yeah, definitely there are some local government, local government authorities. They have made some attempt towards that, and they have they sometimes produce compost, the fertilizers, or they may they have attempted at producing biogas and all these things, but what is lacking is a kind of a comprehensive program or kind of a project where that all the local government, coordinate and launch effort or launch a program to address this the garbage issue. Now, right now, the solution is dumping from one place to another place. I mean, you take it from the home and dump it elsewhere. So then the problem actually you have just transported to another place. That is what that is how the local government manage the garbage issue right now.
So I believe that we can safely draw up a conclusion that the increase in the number of local government members, the number of councillors for local government bodies has not improved the living standards of the general public of this country.
I think it is very clear. It has not happened at all, because when they increase, you have no, I mean, they did not present any, any reason, any justification for that increase. And
I believe that the justification that they did present was the fact that geographically there is a certain, for a certain number of people, there has to be one representative for this many people. And they said with the increase in population, the number of local government representatives have not been increased throughout the past 10 years or so on and so forth. And that was the justification that they gave. But the point of all of this is that they can create, the government of this country can create a better future, a better standard of living for the general public of this country, and that doesn't seem to be what is taking place right now.
Yeah, I think we have to take into account the size of the country as well as the political, we have political culture. We have the provincial council, then we have the
central government,
and then we have the local governments. And I think when you take into account the political structure or the administrative structure in that context, I don't think that we need this much of members at local governments or the provincial councils, because they actually they don't perform. You can increase, but you don't see any performance that the people could feel. This is the
Doctor, coming back to your subject of expertise, economics, the depreciation of the rupee has hit the Sri Lankan general public hard. People find it very hard to make ends meet. What do we really have to do to stop the rupee from depreciating, or to at least turn this condition into a bit more favorable one?
Yeah, I think it is very clear that the people get affected due to this depreciation, and even though inflation in numbers remain very, look good, in reality inflation is higher than what the official statistics show. And I think when it comes to the solution, it is very clear that we have to increase our dollar earnings. Dollar earnings, in the sense you have number of ways through which we can increase the dollar earnings.
One of the way, dollar expense.
Yeah, one of the way that we can increase, we could increase the export of goods and services. Similarly, we can increase it in terms of foreign workers or the migrating workers. And so that one of the most effective way is to increase our export. And but we must understand we cannot increase export within a short, in the short run. The reason is actually our export performance linked with number of weaknesses in the economy, including the very low level of expenditure on research and development, our skill shortages, and the other number of other areas. So that we need time to address those things. In the short run, I think we could address this by imposing some restriction on the unessential goods or the luxury imports. I think some government has taken some steps, even though it took
take
it,
steps.
with a delay.
I'd like to direct your attention, Doctor, to the steps of the government. The austerity measures that the government has taken during this economic crisis situation that we are facing right now. They increased taxes by about, they increased taxes significantly on small vehicles. They said the import of small vehicles has increased so much, so we need to reduce this. We are increasing taxes. How has this measure affected? Has this brought about a positive development towards the economy of the country?
Yes, to a certain extent, I agree that it may have helped in narrowing down our trade deficit. But it is important that we also, highlight the fact that government contradicted its policy stance with respect to, importing vehicles. Now, when government, impose some taxes on small vehicle, government highlighted the fact that the roads are congested and there's traffic and all.
And that
but later government changed the tune. But at the we need to keep it in. I mean, if you carefully look at the some of the other policies government introduced during that time, government introduced a new circular in 8th of June this year, at the time that we experienced some heavy depreciation, where the rupee 156 per dollar, government introduced a circular allowing public servants mean the managerial level public servants, to import vehicle under the vehicle permit, where they enjoy some tariff concessions. And under that particular scheme, actually earlier there was the earlier scheme was such that the maximum you can qualify only for 2 times. Actually, second time after 10 years after the first time. Now, government relaxed that and allow public servants to import more than twice, even if you have already imported
when
twice
did the
or
government
more
exactly
than.
do this?
It is on 6th of last June.
So this is when the rupee was already depreciating a significant level.
Definitely, if government saw the world crisis and what is going to happen.
What the US was doing, the US trade war with China and imposition of sanctions on Iran and so on.
Yes, if government forecasted correctly that the oil price is increasing, and then with the increase in US interest rate that the dollar is getting strong, and in that context it is harder to, it is difficult to understand why government relax and encourage imports when it,
while discouraging imports for the general public, they are encouraging imports by giving out permit-free vehicles to senior public officials.
Yes, exactly. That is what happened. What is this?
How long did this continue for afterwards?
Maybe, I think until recently it continued. I remember that I brought out this issue, this policy contradiction, and after maybe a few days after that, that revelation, government actually, reversed that. I do not know whether it is due to my, it is due to my revelation, but it reversed anyway recently.
But now the government has come forward and said we are not going to issue duty-free vehicle permits for another year for parliamentarians. But now this is in a backdrop where all the parliamentarians have already obtained their duty-free vehicles. Actually, 227 duty-free car permits have been issued to 225 parliamentarians. How much does this affect the economy of Sri Lanka?
No,
is this a valid stance that they've taken?
I think,
or is it a nullity?
Yeah, I think we must understand the political economy of decision making. When government wanted to cancel or the reverse the vehicle permit for the public servants, it also that applies for the parliamentarian, but they certainly know that it does not affect them. So this is just to cover up the basically is not just you but we also do not want permit at this moment. It is, we call the political economy, way of putting things in a way that it looks, we have taken measures to
it looks good on that.
Yes, yes. I think anybody can understand, very, I think, simple, so that it doesn't affect them at all.
Speaking about a very pertinent topic here in Sri Lanka, corruption. How far do you believe corruption affects the economic situation that we are in right now?
I think we have literature in the context of development and growth that corruption have a negative impact on economic growth. It is true elsewhere in the world, so certainly it has impact on Sri Lanka's economic growth as well, economic growth or economic development, the way that we perform. I think the corruption is from, you could see that even at the level of local government and even at other levels as well, at the same time even in the private sector, not just the public sector. So as long as we work in this economic model, corruption is unavoidable according to my understanding. You can, to some extent, you can reduce it, but you cannot eliminate it. Why people, provide corruption or provide bribes? In order to get some competitive edge, so that when the economy is competitive, so that players are willing to pay some extra and to get some competitive edge. This is something I think we need to keep in mind.
But I believe the problem in Sri Lanka is massive corruption. Corruption has spread its roots to everything. Even sports. If you take the Sri Lanka cricket, there are stories of corruption coming out of Sri Lankan cricket almost every day now. So things like this, like corruption has spread so far. How bad is it going to be? Is corruption going to see any downturn in the future, or is it just going to continue to rise?
No, what we see is not just in the context of today's context, but time to time we have seen that voice against corruption reach a peak level and then come down, and so that there is opposition, but we need to keep it in mind why we face this issue in Sri Lanka. The reason is we do not have effective mechanism to basically handle or punish who are corrupted or who accept bribe. So our mechanism, or including the police and the other courts and other the structure that we have do not effectively actually address the issue of corruption, and there are a number of ways through which those who involve can get away. So we see how the money play in different different institutions. So in that context, it is really difficult to contain this situation unless civil society get together and make a huge cry and take very decisive steps to address this issue. Otherwise,
now amidst all this negativity, the Minister of Finance and Mass Media again has come out and said that the media should not turn a blind eye on the achievements of the government. Doctor, what do you believe are the achievements of this government on an economic standpoint?
Yeah, from the economic viewpoint, as I earlier mentioned, government has introduced number of policies, policy documents, but we don't see implementation is very poor. So in that context, we cannot really list down the number of things as positive. We know that economic growth is right now around 4%. Inflation numbers, official numbers are good, but we have
the reality is different.
Yeah, reality is different. Only one side I must say that I believe as positive, that government took some steps to increase tax revenue. It is good in the sense, otherwise we we may continue to borrow. I mean, government has borrowed a lot, even the present government, but still it is not a good thing that we have a declining trend with respect to the public revenue. It could hurt number of areas, and so that in that context, I think collecting revenue, government, I think it is something
positive. Some positive steps.
Yeah, and at the same time, government should take steps to, I think, correct the expenditure pattern as well.
Speaking about the implementation of government policy, Verite research came out recently and said that out of the promises given in the 2018 budget, the budget for the financial year 2018, only 8% of the promises have been fulfilled. How far do you see this as affecting on the Sri Lankan economy?
Now this is, I think, even today I saw in a newspaper cartoon where that budget proposal looks very, rosy, or looks very,
magnificent.
Yes. But when it comes to implementation, it has just faded away. In the sense that actually not just this government, I must say, even the previous government, they have, I mean, wonderful proposals when they present the budget, and they provide this much of allocation to health, this much of allocation to education. People feel very happy. But if you look at the end of the day, to what extent they have actually spent that amount, little. In particular, the expenditure allocated as capital expenditure. So in that context, actually, we see continuously they allocate some number of rupees, knowing that they actually do not undertake such investments. And
so one thing can be rest assured, the allocations that are made for their ministries, for their personal use, will definitely be used fully.
Yeah, definitely. It is that we could see very clearly that recurrent expenditure they fully utilize. At the same time, some of the pet projects that they are
Speaking about these pet projects, one thing that pops up in my mind is the proposal in the 2018 budget to provide tabs to all students and teachers in the A-level section. Now, when I first heard this, I was kind of disappointed at first. I wished I was in school at the time, because then I'd get a free tab. But then this did not materialize in the end.
Now, I think that it did not materialize. From one perspective, I like that it did not materialize. But at the same time, if you look into that, why it did not materialize, it is due to the conflict in terms of the policy level conflict between the two main political parties or the leaders. So this is the biggest issue that I see, the policy reversal and the policy inconsistencies, and a lot of delays with respect to policy implementation. So as a result, what has happened is that we have reached this level of economic collapse, and the poor, we record this level of, I mean, the current poor economic performance we record largely due to this economic mismanagement, I must say. Actually, policy inconsistencies and collapse. And when
Dr. Priyanga Dunusinghe, we could speak for hours on end about the policy inconsistency here in Sri Lanka and the current economic situation that we are in. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of our show. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us this evening. We would love to have you on our show once again. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's it from Newsline for tonight. Join us again on Monday. Take care and God bless.